can
sweet
have this for later.
Excellent.
I'm super excited. I haven't seen the release notes tooling, and I've always been curious, so I'm gonna watch.
Okay.
Even
there
more
is a
nervous.
Pardon?
I get even more nervous if this is the first time they're going to see them.
Okay, I've dropped a document, a link to some agenda and some notes for this meeting in there in the chat for the Zoom. Just find my notes. So hello and welcome. My name is James Laverack. I'm the release notes and the lead for Kubernetes 120. And this is an onboarding meeting designed primarily for shadows, but also really for anyone who's interested. This is 2nd October 2020, or I believe it is the 3rd of October for some people. And this is a Kubernetes meeting, so please abide by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. Thank you everyone for making this work. I know we've had some interesting difficulties trying to fit this around time zones. I know Sonia in particular, I believe it's 2:30, 3:30 in the morning for you right now, something like that. It's quite early, so thank you very much for managing to make this. I think everyone here has introduced themselves before. Sonia, are you aware who everyone is? Because I think you missed the first round of meeting introductions that people did.
Yeah, hi. So let me start by introducing myself. So this is Sonia. Currently, I am a student and studying my bachelor's. So yeah, I am open source contributor in Mozilla and in the Thanos project, and this will be my first time contributing in Kubernetes. And yeah, I am excited and nervous at the same time, meeting with the people with so much experience. So yeah, this is about me.
Okay, thank you very much. Celeste, did you want to say a few words?
Hi, I'm Celeste. I'm a technical writer with the CNCF. So I work on Kubernetes full-time, which is super cool. I also work on a whole bunch of other CNCF projects as needed. And I'm a shadow for 120 and super excited to be here. Hello.
Thank you for that. Jackie, do you have a couple words?
Yeah, hello from Toronto, Canada. First time shadowing, so very excited to be here.
Thank you. And Wilson, last of the shadows.
Hey, folks, my name is Wilson. I work at VMware, and this is my second time shadowing the release notes team. So yeah, happy to be here.
Okay. We also have Adolfo with us.
Hi, I'm Adolfo. I was the release notes lead during the last cycle, 119, and I'm here because I worked on a lot of the tooling that we're going to use today. And right now, I'm a release manager associate in C release, and I'm happy to be here.
And last but not least, Jeremy, who is very kindly joining and doing a lot of the organization of this meeting. I think everyone knows who you are, but
I'll introduce myself just for the recording too. My name's Jeremy. I also work at VMware. Hey, Wilson. I am the 120 release lead. I've been on a few release teams before, so as we go through things, if you have questions about, I can answer questions about bug triage because I did that a long time ago, and I did enhancements a couple times. So if you have questions about either of those, let me know. Just general questions about the release stuff, feel free to reach out anytime. I'm in Colorado, so I start my day kind of early because I have coworkers in India, Bulgaria, and London. So I started early to talk to them, and then I work late too because I like to be busy.
Fair enough. Right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to try and share my screen, which I need to ask Jeremy to let me do, I think, because I can't quite click the button.
You do. Let me make you a co-host.
Oh, excellent.
That way you can also manage the meeting.
Nice.
Okay, give it a shot now.
Okay, I can pick a desktop. Oh, it has now moved a bunch of stuff on my screen and I can't see anyone in it anymore. Okay, can people see my web browser?
Yep.
Okay, see some nodding heads. Excellent. So at first I just wanted to outline what it is exactly we're doing. It sounds a bit obvious, but our job effectively is to manage this. So this is the release notes for Kubernetes version 119, which was the most recent stable release. Our ultimate output will be this document to some extent or another. There's a couple of major parts. There's a major themes section, and towards the end of the release cycle, we'll be going around and speaking to each individual SIGs to ask what they think has been a major improvement for them during this release, and kind of collating that and putting into this big list. But of course, we won't really be doing that until the end. During the most part of a release, we will be generating this. So this is a giant list of everything that changed. You see, these are all actually related to individual pull requests against Kubernetes. So it's loading, here we go. So I just picked one at random. We can see that this changes something for logging the kubelet. And it has on it, as part of the pull request, this piece of text here. And this is the release note. So we don't actually write these for the most part. They're written by feature contributors at the time when the feature is written. So in really basic terms, our job is to turn this into that big document. Of course, we have tooling to help us do that, because just copying and pasting this would take a very long time and be extremely boring. So we primarily have a tool called krel, which will do it. So some people call it krel. I'm not sure if there's a canonical pronunciation, but I'm not going to get into that. But I go with krel, so I'm going to say that. Krel's source code is over in the Kubernetes release repository. You can find it in here if you're particularly interested in that. But there's also its documentation under docs krel, which explains how it works and what it does. And it actually does a whole load of stuff relating to the release process. But the part we care about is the release notes subcommand, which is what we're going to spend a fair bit of time talking about. Oh, by the way, if anyone had any questions, feel free to just interrupt at any time. So right now, our primary thing we will need to do, especially for the early part of release, is effectively run this tool whenever there's a release. So there was a release done a couple of weeks ago, which gave us Alpha 1, and Alpha 2 is scheduled for in a couple of weeks. And then we'll get some more alphas, then some betas, then some release candidate releases. And every time one of those comes out, we should run this to update it. That process is getting gradually more automated, which means that our job is changing. And it's really starting to change in this release 120, because we have a new part of the tool, which Adolfo is going to talk about in a little bit, but is going to be, broadly speaking, allow us to edit these notes as we go, and allow us to actually keep track of those edits and manage those edits internally within the release team. Because right now, if we wanted to patch or change any of these release notes, we would have to go change this original PR, which would probably require someone with sufficient permissions to go edit this. Like, I don't think I can. Yeah, I can't edit this, for example. So I would need to ask either someone with a significant amount of privilege, permissions on the system, or the original committer to go and change it. So this lets us do that editing. For the tooling itself, there's a whole lot of documentation for krel and how to build and compile these, but which I won't go through in particular detail here, but the broad idea is that you can clone this repository Kubernetes release, and then you can go like compile release tools krel. And as long as you've got your system set up in a reasonable way, so you've got Go installed and all the rest of it, it will produce the tooling and put it in the place that you can execute it from. So yeah, it was really lightning fast because I did it like half an hour ago, but you get the idea. And then we can do it. You don't actually need to execute krel from anywhere in particular. It's agnostic from where you execute it from, so don't feel you need to execute it in this directory. And the most basic thing we need to do is this release notes command. So I'm going to find it. Oh, there we go. Cool. So we instruct krel to generate some release notes. We tell it to create a draft PR. We have this DAX fix flag, and this is the new one for 120 that has the interactive mode. And then we give it a few other pieces of information. We need to tell it what the fork is. So where these release notes actually go during the release is not into like the main Kubernetes website. They're published into a Git repo, specifically into K-Stig release. So this is where that document outlining the release team and all the release handbooks is. Also in here under releases, release 120, there will be a document called draft release notes. And if you go look at one of the other releases, release notes draft, sorry, .md, this is where it ends up. So what this tool will do is generate this file, and it will generate the file, it will upload it to your fork on GitHub, and it will create a pull request for you. So it automates that entire part. In order for this to work, you need to have a fork of this repository already existing. So I've already forked this, but all you need to do is just go click the button, do fork. Again, this is all documented, but it's part of the process. So you don't need to particularly worry about this. The tools will mostly take care of this for you. But I need to tell it where the fork is. So I just give it my GitHub username. So this is where the fork is under. And then I need to tell it what version I'm building for. So this is a tag of Kubernetes. So it needs to have the V in front of it, and it needs to be one that exists and all that. So it's right now it's 120 alpha 1. If I run this, it's actually going to take a little bit of time, because what this is going to do is it's going to clone Kubernetes, all of it, and then it's going to start scanning through Git commits, and it's going to go and query the GitHub API and ask GitHub for a bunch of information. And then it's going to start doing it. It's actually running much faster here than it normally would, because it's already cached a bunch of stuff when I ran this earlier. And you'll normally hit like API limits and all sorts of things. So you'll see lots of little warnings of GitHub's telling you you've been rate limited, but that's okay. The tool will back off and it will. I see Celeste holding her hand up. Is that to ask a question?
Yeah. So I'm just seeing as the output scrolling by, there's a lot of like this PR contains no release notes. This PR contains no release note. Is there problems of committers not knowing that they need a release note for a PR? Like, is that an issue that we need to be aware of?
I don't have enough visibility to answer that question authoritatively.
Okay.
You certainly can say none. So let's pick on this one just at random, because it's the one I happen to stop on. So if I go find Kubernetes, which I might have under here, I do.
I guess the question I'm asking is, how well trained are the contributors to know that they need to put a release note field in?
I mean, the Prow will complain at you if you don't do it.
Okay.
So if you don't have so I don't know what this one is. It failed apparently. Oh, I did a search for his author. Great.
I think you need to remove the poll. Instead of pulse, it's
poll.
poll.
It's poll, of course. Oh. Yeah, so what the committer did is they did none. So this is a special piece of information that says you definitely do not want a release note. And the release note robot will actually pick that up and say, oh, release note none. And it won't let you let you merge a PR without either saying explicitly there is no release note or without having one there. I think there's like maybe a special command you can do it to override that, but there's effectively saying there's no release note. So okay. In terms of how well trained they are, I don't have any stats on how many none and whether things get missed in that respect or not. So one of the things I don't actually do is contribute to upstream Kubernetes in the code capacity. So I don't do it. I don't know.
That's totally fine, and we can just leave it there as like a. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
But the tooling will at least push you in the right direction. Adolfo, so you had it.
Yeah, the pull request template actually has instructions for them to fill out that part, and it will complain if you don't fill any of them. And also, that one is just saying that it has the none flag on it, but it will actually spit out an error if Krell cannot parse either none or a valid release note. It will spit out an error, and we're supposed to fix those. And in the end, we didn't do it during the last cycle. We had around, I don't know, 20 or so pull requests without a valid release note. And we didn't have time to go after the others, but it will tell you which ones.
Okay, interesting. continue. Thank you so much.
Okay. Where was I? Right. So this is probably actually run by now. As I say, if it hadn't cached it, this can take a little while. We do actually have some errors here, so maybe these are good examples. No matching found when tagged in. So if I pull up this one, for example, I need to change it to poll. Is this what you mean, Adolfo, by errors coming up from not parsing? Yeah. So in this one, the committer has put no, but because the tool expects a code block with non-capitals written in it, it hasn't understood what the robot said release note is needed, and I think someone came along and said release note none to tell the tooling specifically that there is no release note and just do it anyway. But I don't think our tool, the KVal, is smart enough to realize that. So
Okay.
yeah, but it's they just wrote the wrong thing, and it doesn't necessarily tell you exactly what to write. Well, I think it does, but it's easy to get that wrong because you might not realize that this is being parsed by a machine if you didn't know anything about this tooling.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Cool. So we have the new part is this. So normally what would have happened is if you ran this tool back in Kubernetes 1.19, then this would go and open some pull requests and that would be it. Now we have the new bit. Adolfo, I know, did you want to talk through this? And we can use this as a demo, or I'm not sure how you
Yeah,
wanted
of
to.
course.
Okay.
So the idea behind this, when we first started working on this during 1.18, the idea that we had was to completely eliminate the release notes team, just simply automate everything. But I was having some discussions with Sasha, and he's very meticulous on the quality of the notes, and he convinced me that we had to have some human review process, and that became even more important now that we're caring about the naming stuff, right? So this process is the idea behind this is to have the opportunity to automate everything on one side, but still have a chance to review and improve the quality of the text that people write. And so this is what we came up, and this is the first time we're using it. So let's see how it goes.
So it's given me a prompt. There's a pull request in flight for the in flight, I mean open and ready to being reviewed. Sorry. For changes to that handbook, which I've linked in the meeting notes for this, which Adolfo wrote, and hopefully we'll get them merged at some point. But because the tools have already merged effectively, we're already using that. So I encourage people to read that. But effectively, you can see it's now asking me to press enter to start. And it gives me a little bit of information about what this tool is and what it does. And I continue on, it will show me, in this case, we have 10 changes that have release notes in alpha 1. And it will one by one show me the text and the information about those requests. Basically, the information that's going to go into that document is shown, and I can edit this. So I don't know if it's a good idea to edit one of these as an example. I suppose I could do something entirely superfluous, like add a full stop or something. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, Adolfo.
Yeah, you can add exactly like a period, just an enter and see.
Yeah. So let's say we're going to edit this one. So this drops me down into an editor. So this has put me in Vim, which is going to be very interesting because I'm really bad at using Vim. So I need to uncomment these 2 lines, is that right?
Yeah, you have to have the PR and release note without any spaces before it. Without any spaces, and one of the other fields. Okay.
So some valid YAML that looks kind of like that. So we're leaving the rest of it alone, and I'm going to add a full stop, which is an entirely superfluous change at this point. But you can imagine we could do anything. We could correct typos or spelling mistakes or really anything. I'm going to save this out. And then it's just moved straight on to the next pull request, next release note to be looked at. So if I just go through most of these, I think that I suspect that these. I mean, I haven't checked. I suspect most of these are probably fine. So I can say, yes, that's cool. I said yes, I want to edit that. I can just quit out of this after saying yes without doing anything, and it's fine, right? No.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
So you
New
can
tools.
just-
Yeah, I just say I just say no.
Yeah, because it came out with an empty file, so that's why.
Mm.
So
Okay.
right now it's fetching all the dependencies to generate the draft. Because
Okay.
did you hit Control C?
No, I didn't. I just hit no and enter while doing that.
That's an untested scenario. All right, so it's going to actually do the write the files and ask you if you want to create the pull request now.
Okay. So yeah, this is the first time we've run these tools kind of live. So there might be bugs here and there, but I'm sure we can fix those as we go
like
along.
the flow. If you don't want to, okay, so that's like a interesting bug in the flow. So if you choose not to, if you have an error in the YAML and choose not to retry the editing, it will simply carry on.
Yeah. So create pull request with your changes. Let's say yes. Let's see what it does. It's only going to create a PR, so we can always reject it if it's really bad.
Yeah.
So I hit yes. One important thing for this, you need to generate a GitHub token and set it as an environment variable in your shell. Again, the documentation tells you how to do this. I'm not going to cap mine out, so I don't have to like revoke it when this video goes up. But that's how this thing is able to act on GitHub, is using that token. So it has created a pull request for me just now. I don't know if that's like shouted in SIG release. No, it hasn't. Okay, I can't remember if we had automation turned on for this. So this has generated this thing just now, and you can take a look and see what it's done. And we can see that it's created this release notes draft file. And all of these pull requests, all of these pieces of information that were put in here. So if we find the one that I edited, do you remember what it was? I added a full stop, but I don't remember which one it was.
Let me see if it got the other files in it.
Files changed one. I think I might have missed the mapping file.
Yeah, probably it just simply went and fully aborted the whole editing process.
Okay. Yeah, aborted the whole editing process in this case. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but assuming you have no changes, because it should have, those changes should get persisted into what's called a mapping file and committed as well. So next time this tool is run by any of us or anyone, you'll have the same changes reported last time. So you don't, every time we generate this, you don't have to apply the same fixes every time. And we keep a record of our fixes versus the PRs, because of course the PR could change under us, and then we have to decide to fix it again because a fix might not apply cleanly in the kind of Git parlance. But in this case, because I aborted the editing flow by accident, it's not done any of that. So we've just got this file. But this is, for the purpose of Alpha 1, this is probably sufficient. We probably do need to go through and review all of these, because otherwise we're going to have thousands of these by the end of the thing, and it's going to take ages. But it has generated this file, and this is kind of the primary output ahead of the next release, which is Alpha 2 in a couple of weeks' time. Adolfo, what's your opinion on like closing this PR, and then should we be going through and reviewing things, or if I merge this and then we ran the tool again with fix, we'll get the opportunity to go back and iterate on it? Is that correct?
Yeah, the idea is that you can send as many as you like. The tool is supposed to continue where you, and then continue editing all the unchecked PRs so far. So if you leave this version of the notes, and someone can pick it up like next week and verify some more, and it should upload all the map files and session files to be able to continue where you left off.
Okay. So it sounds like, I mean, it's up to us to decide how we want to do this, because again, this is a new part of the process for 120. But it feels like we should be doing this relatively often. Like every so often, one of us should go through and start reviewing stuff and start talking about these things. And we don't have to like do, several, because it does. I thought it was it gave me the 1 out of 10. I thought it was like there was only 10 or something, but I think that was something else, wasn't it?
Yeah, that 1 out of 10 is because the library in SIG release that asks you the yes or no question. You have to provide a number of maximum number of times to ask you the same question. So if it asks you yes or no and you answer like, I don't know, W 10 times, it will cancel. So
I misunderstood what that meant. That's why I thought it was only 10, but no, there's not. There's a lot of them, as we can see.
Yeah, I tried to fix that, but
I didn't think it was a bit low, but I thought that we've had code
like
freeze. Maybe it's not
now.
Yeah, okay. It's gonna be fun. Anyway, so my feeling is for right now, if we get this reviewed and approved, and then starting over the next week or so, we start going through and reviewing these. I'd rather load balance this, but I don't think we can do it concurrently. So if people want to, just post, I guess, in the channel to say, oh, well, I'm going to start reviewing some stuff. And then we can go through the process of getting that PR'd and approved. And then someone else could pick it up, which might be a little bit slow to begin with, but we have, I think, enough time, especially at this stage. Later on in the release, when the releases are a bit faster, we might need to do something else, like do it as a kind of a live exercise of some description. But I think certainly for now, my main focus or main desire would be to get everyone the chance to kind of run this tool, get used to it, start editing things, start looking at reading through the release notes and looking at stuff.
And reporting any bugs that you found.
And reporting delightful bugs, which we will find. There's nothing like users to find bugs, Adolfo, and we are your users.
Or a live demo.
Or a live demo, exactly. So one more thing which we need to do is there is the release notes website. So this is relnotes.case.io. So this has much of the same information, but it is a nice kind of like JavaScript searchable file, and you can like narrow down by SIG and all that sort of stuff. It's great. This is fed by another repository. It's fed by Kubernetes SIG's release notes. And in here, there are some JSON files which specify in JSON format the same information that's in the kind of long form markdown release notes. The KROL tool will also do this. I think its integration with, it hasn't fully integrated with the fix functionality yet, is my understanding, Adolfo?
It will, if you run it right now, it will actually upload the same data that you just created in the draft.
Okay, so if I sorry, I
think you're back.
My laptop froze for a second there, like completely, which is a bit interesting, but I hope I don't break it. That'd be bad. Anyway, I don't know what you heard, but if I just rerun this now as dash create website PR without the dash fix, that's right, isn't it? It will do much the same thing, but it won't ask me any questions. It will just go and create that PR. During the release, we'll create a file in here for each sub-release. So this will create our 120.0 alpha 1, and then we'll create a second file for alpha 2 and so on and so forth. And at the end, we'll collapse all of those down into a release notes 120.0 JSON file, which is a fun experience.
Currently
and that's
you have to do that by hand.
Yeah, that's by hand, but that's gonna be fun. But again, we only do that once at the end of the release cycle. I think that's largely it for what we need to do during this release cycle. Does anyone have any questions about kind of our goals or our duties or what we need to be doing? Get as I know, that's good. I think the only other thing we were going to talk about in this was kind of overview of future direction, because I know Adolfo over in Kubernetes release engineering, which is a sub-project of SIG release, there's been a lot of, or been some discussion about where we're going from here and what the future's looking like. Maybe not this release, but in a few releases time. I don't know if you had any insight into that.
Well, I actually think that we're going to automate the actual run of the tools. So someone, I don't know if in the future if it's going to be the release notes team or maybe somebody else like Celeste was suggesting of folding it into docs. Still we'll have to do the review and maybe correct some of the notes and also do the gathering of the major themes. But the actual run of the tools that feed the website and create the draft, I think that will be automated really soon, but we'll see. And also there was, well, actually for now I think that's the only note, because there's also some discussion on where the actual point where the release notes should start generating, but maybe we should discuss that offline, because to leave this video in a more general
Sure.
users.
Yeah, if people are interested in that side of kind of release engineering, then the release engineering meeting is of course open to all, and I would encourage you to join that, or speak to the release engineering team in their Slack channel, which is Adolfo and Sasha and Stephen primarily, but many others, of course. Yeah, so you can see here that I'm hitting rate limits on GitHub, which is just a part of using these tools. But it is almost done with 92%, which is nice. Once these two pull requests are open, they'll go through the normal pull request approval mechanism. So it should be relatively fast to get someone to come approve them. I mean, possibly not this late in the day, but someone will come along necessarily, and we should get those merged. And
yeah, actually it seems a bit high, the number of PRs considerable. Let's see what comes out.
Oh, maybe it's something we done something wrong. Oh yeah, and it has to pretty far in order to satisfy the pre-commit or the post-commit checks for that repository, because it's a website. All of the JSON has to be pretty printed. So this is then going to go and install npm to do pretty printing and a bunch of other stuff, which is takes a while, but the tool is automated. I think when I started in we started in 1.18 Adolfo, and that wasn't automated, was it? You had to run that yourself. That was fun.
Yeah.
Cool. So that pull request is open. This one is going to be open in a minute, and then we can start the review process on that. I suppose at some point, once the first one that I already opened has merged, we can talk about who we want to have the first stab at running the fix tool in order to go and start editing these things and approving them, and kind of that manual introspection. But yeah, I think that is the broad strokes of what we need to do. Was there anything else? Did anyone have any other general questions? Anything I've missed?
So I guess this is something new in this cycle where we are actually editing the release notes, right? Do we want to have those discussions over in Slack as we coordinate the work of generating, or should we have it on the PR and have the discussions over there on the things that we would like to fix and amend, and then pretty much rerun the tool again with those fixes, push another commit to the same branch?
That's a good question. I don't think we have a process for this right now. So largely we are going to be helping to shape that. My kind of immediate opinion, and this could well be wrong, please do correct me, Jeremy, Adolfo, I think this is silly, is that if it's a kind of a structural change, by which I mean so spelling corrections, grammar, editing, that sort of thing, I would be pretty happy for us to just do that and for kind of decide among ourselves that, you know, this is fine. You know, we added a full stop, we corrected something like that. If it's like a change in meaning, so we feel the release note simply doesn't explain enough or doesn't give enough background, or is perhaps technically incorrect, although it may be quite difficult for us to identify if a release note is technically incorrect without, because we're not expected to go and read the code of every single change that goes into Kubernetes. It's impossible, even for a team like us, to do that. But anything more significant than like spelling and grammar, I would expect that we'd probably want to go and speak to the original author just to make sure that they were happy with it and they understood. Typically, we in the release notes team haven't gone back to original authors to ping them about things very often. But I know that other teams, obviously to release teams, particularly enhancements, find that to be a challenging experience, or can be a challenging experience. So we might have to cross the bridge of, you know, we think a release note isn't good enough, and we speak to someone and they just don't go back to us because, of course, it's a voluntary project. No one has any requirements to get back to us. So that we might have to address as we go along. But hopefully we should be able to say, oh, maybe this would be better, and they'll say yes. But I think this is going to be an evolving process, and I think that part of the interesting part of this release is going to be evolving that process and deciding what it should look like.
Yeah, I would agree with what you just said. I think that if it's beyond fixing grammatical things, it's probably a good idea to reach back out to the author. I also agree with your statement that sometimes it's difficult to get responses from the authors on GitHub. If you ping them on Slack, it's less of an issue. And it is sometimes hard to try to like figure out who's who from GitHub to Slack. And in those cases, I think it's totally valid to reach out to the SIG that's responsible, because they can also weigh in on the wording of the release note and make some of those changes and weigh in on that. I mean, in the end, they have responsibility for the PR itself and the changes coming in. So I think they should be a good resource for also making sure that the release note is valid and correct.
Yeah, and perhaps Celeste can provide some insight from the naming worker perspective, since a lot of the value of this, I think it's also checking on the words used and so on.
That's what I was going to say. I think it would actually be useful if I did the first pass. Because, so to give a bit of background here, the very first task I ever had as a technical writer when I was learning the job was to do release notes at BlackBerry. So this is actually like very near and dear to my heart. And there are like very, very standard ways of writing these things in my world. And I would be very happy to do the first pass and then do a session to like transfer off like this is how you phrase it. This is an industry standard thing. It'll make us all look professional and cool. So maybe that's our next kind of session is I'll teach you a bit about how to write.
Yeah, because I think whatever becomes of the release notes team, the whatever guidelines they're going to be for the next people in charge of this should be more on the editorial side and on technical side. So that's it.
Yep.
That's more important.
Yep. So how about I take first stab, and then I set up another call, and you can come dance in the technical writing garden.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of that. I know that you have a wealth of experience actually writing release notes, whereas like my experience is like writing KREL release notes and hitting enter. Well, I suppose my only comment would be we're going to have to figure out synchronous meetings versus asynchronous changes here. Because this team is distributed over a time zone difference of like 13, 14 hours or something. So while for one-off meetings like this, it's possible to get everyone in the same room, I think that it's probably unreasonable to ask us to do this every week or every release or something to get everyone in one room. It's just not going to be fair on the team. And I think that if I said I was going to have a meeting at 10 o'clock p.m. every Friday, my wife would be unhappy with me. But but I think certainly for a first stab during a meeting, I mean, again, if we record it, then people who can't make it can watch the recording, especially if knowledge transfer is the ideal. And we can look at doing async ones as well. So like I said, I'd like everyone to pick these up. And I don't necessarily expect everyone to do it live with people watching. So yeah, I think a mixture is probably good to work. But yes, I'd say definitely, if you want to pick up the first one, that's great. We should do that. In that case, shall we get the first draft file merged with no map changes at all? And then as soon as that's merged, you're free to kind of start that. It usually doesn't take too long to get these things merged. We can probably prioritize that. We're talking to Adolfo, our friendly reviewer. I think he's a reviewer.
I'm probably the least technical person on the shadow, so I will probably need both of your help, and I will reach out on Slack.
Excellent. That's kind of it for our side of things. For Sonia and Jackie in particular, if you were wanting for things kind of more on the technical side to do, it isn't really part of our remit on the release team at all. But I'm sure Adolfo would love to have some help on writing Golang if that's your thing. But again, that's not really part of our team. That's just another thing you could do in Kubernetes related to this if you were interested. I did something like I wrote some of the code that opens pull requests and things, and it was an interesting experience. Not written anywhere near as much as Adolfo has written, but quite.
Yeah, of course, and any help is always welcome.
Yeah. But yeah, I think as Adolfo said, our team's job is going to change to be much more writing and editorial than it is technical from this release forwards, basically. So it's yeah, okay. So I guess an action from this is we will get this merged. When it's merged, I'll give you a ping and you can set up a meeting, and we'll go from there. Any further questions? Everyone happy?
This was cool. Thank you for allowing us to record this so we can share it for everyone just to be aware and maybe use it for future teams if we're going to keep this up.
There's one last aspect of this. We were discussing on whether we should edit the major themes in public and in a more collaboratively way. So during the last cycle, we were going and on if we should open the major themes document on. So there was some discussion on whether we should lift the information embargo for that. I don't know, Jeremy, if something on that front has changed or.
So I think in the retro, we discussed the embargo, and I think the general consensus was that the embargo is mostly hopefully for companies making blog posts and stuff before we as the community and the release team release that. Generally it should be tied with the CNCF blog and this thing going and like just the release blog in general going live. With the knowledge that almost everything that would go into the major themes and whatnot is public information anyway. If anybody's reading the GitHub issues, if they're reading the enhancements tracking spreadsheet, all of those things are really like discernible, and it's not like it's top secret. So I think that we had decided in the retro that the embargo didn't really apply to this and that we could work on the major themes and stuff in the open. I will take an action item to go reconfirm that with Stephen and Tim just to verify, but I think that was the takeaway. So I will do that this afternoon and drop you all a note.
Yeah, in case, so if they decide to lift the embargo and do you want to do the major things in the open, the code is written, that's what we used during the last cycle. So if they approve to lift the embargo, just let me know and I'll merge it.
Cool, excellent. Cool. Anything else?
Not for me.
All right then.
Cool. Thank you, Adolfo, for giving us this overview and providing us that cool info, and James for leading us through this session. And thanks for everybody for joining the team. Super excited to have everybody join us for the 120 super awesome release.
Yeah, and if
Oh,
any of you need any help on my side, please let me know. Ping me in Slack, wherever. I'm here.
a question: where does the recording go? Because I missed a couple seconds, disconnected.
Yeah, so the recording will go to the Zoom account, and then Tim Pepper has been going through and manually copying these things over to to YouTube, so that then they get added to the SIG release playlist. So there's usually like a week or so lag, because I don't think he does it every day. He's doing it like once a week or so, and those things get copied over to YouTube, and then he just adds them to the SIG release playlist. So you'll be able to see it there. We can drop a note into the channel when that's done.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. On that note, it is 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes too. So I think we should end there. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and thank you all for coming.
Happy weekend.
Yeah.
Happy weekend,
Friday.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.